So as it turns out, Nicole may just be the #1 support agent in the entire game. Yes, you have heard me right. Better than Sokaku, better than Lucy, and yes, even better than Rina. And this is of course very important for you to know, as you are very much starved for resources early on, and having this sort of knowledge may end up saving you weeks worth of energy or battery, as it is called in Zenless Zone 0. So why do I say that Nicole is so good? Well, it actually comes from a rising trend that I've been noticing across CN players on the Chinese server that have been replacing Sokaku with Nicole as their primary support for the current #1 team in the game, the Mono Ice team of Ellen, Sokaku and Lycaon, despite it having great synergy across the board. And even I myself have started doing so, despite having a maxed out Sokaku W engine that I even have multiple spare copies of, and I have unlocked all of these talents, leveled up all of these skills, and I nearly maxed out all of our Mindscape cinemas. I am currently missing the final one, but it's not really that great, but either way, why would I prefer to let go of this very well invested Sokaku and instead opt to go with Nicole? And there's actually quite a few reasons for this, so let's go over all of them right now. So as you progress through Zenless Zone 0 and eventually beat the entire blue area of the Shield defense mode, eventually you will unlock the red area, and that one is filled with very powerful enemies that are of a much higher level than you. And that is exactly where Nicole is going to shine, as the increased damage output that she's going to provide is going to become much more valuable. What I mean by this is all due to Nicole's own passives. Nicole's core skill is going to make it so that whenever she hits an enemy with her energy field that she's able to use very easily, by either using an EX special or simply triggering a chain attack, you will be able to reduce the enemy's defense for 25% all the way up to 40% at max level for 3.5 seconds. And while 3.5 seconds may not initially seem like much, because Nicole's energy field is going to be hitting the enemy multiple times, the duration is going to be refreshed, which means that you will have time to swap into your main DPS and you will have enough time to deal a lot of damage. And you might be thinking to yourself, yes, having this extra defense reduction is going to be very important and impactful, but is it not just going to be better to go with Sokaku, especially when paired with Ellen, and not only have Sokaku's core skill active, which is going to provide your main DPS character with an attack buff of up to 1000, and with the additional ability would also increase the ice damage of the entire team after using the X skill by 20%. Would that not be more beneficial than to go with Nicole? Well, let's do a quick comparison. So here in the training area we have my Ellen and Nicole against a level 30 enemy. If I simply do a basic attack, I'm going to be doing 448 and 737 on a crit. However, if I were to go into Nicole, let's make sure that we have our max energy, use the X skill, and then swap into Ellen. Now I'm doing 987 per crit. And as for my non-crit, 550 damage. So against this level 30 enemy, Nicole's damage increase was 33.92% on critical hits, and on non-critical hits it was a 22.8% increase. That being said, let's now take a look at the damage differences that we would get against a level 70 enemy. Let's see how much damage I'm dealing with Ellen. As you can see, whenever I hit this level 70 enemy and I do a crit, I'm going to be doing 451 damage, like so. And I'm only going to be doing 274 damage on a normal attack. The reason why I'm doing much less damage against this level 70 enemy is that naturally it has a higher defense, which means that the level difference is going to actually make a big difference when it comes to the damage that I deal. However, that is where Nicole is going to come into play. With Nicole's EX special, I'm now going to be doing 661 damage on a crit, and 368 damage on a non-crit. So as you can see, the gap in damage against level 70 enemies becomes much bigger, having a 34.31% damage increase on non-critical hits and a massive 46.56% damage increase on critical hits. And again, this is all thanks to Nicole's core skill that I currently only have at level 3 that is going to provide me with a 30% defense reduction. As you can see, my Nicole is currently at level 40 and my Ellen is level 50 with only one Mindscape cinema, and this Mindscape in particular isn't really going to increase Ellen's damage output, though a couple of things to note is that for one, I do have Nicole's W engine, which is another reason why she is such a powerful character and an upgrade over Sokaku, because her W engine has the fantastic effect of whenever you use an EX special, chain attack or ultimate attack, will increase the damage that everyone on your party is going to deal against the target that you have hit by 20%, and that is absolutely massive. And when we compare that to Sokaku's W engine that I have here maxed out, you can see that the only benefit that it provides to the entire party is increasing your party's attack by up to 12.8%, given that you are able to stack the passive to the maximum. And that just really comes down to how powerful it is to have a defense reduction on top of a way to increase the damage that your allies are going to deal, rather than just having a skill or a W engine dedicated to increasing the attack of your party. Now, it should be noted that the additional ability of Sokaku is going to provide you with a massive ice damage increase of 20% whenever you use the EX skill. So in a way, it's kind of similar to the effect that Nicole's W engine the Vault is going to have. Although the Vault is going to provide you with only a 15% damage increase if you only have one copy of it, but can go up all the way to 24% if you fully max it out. Now, it is important to mention that both my Nicole and Sokaku are both using the 4-piece Swing Jazz, which is going to provide an additional 15% damage increase whenever they trigger a chain attack. Although in that specific test I did not trigger a chain attack, so I was not using it. And I'm using on both characters the Hormone Punk 2-piece set, just to be able to get an additional 10% attack. Now, another very important reason as to why Nicole may be a better character than Sokaku or even Rina is that in the Shiyu defense you're going to be facing multiple enemies that are going to have a lot of different resistances. And sometimes you may be going against an enemy that is weak to ice, but right after you may be facing against an enemy that is resistant to ice. And so having a character of a different attribute that you are able to add onto your team, that is not only going to provide a ton of value by lowering the enemy's defense and increasing the damage that you are going to deal, but that can also deal increased damage against enemies, because maybe the enemies on that floor are weak to ether or they are resistant to ice damage. All of that is going to result in you being more efficient by having Nicole on the team, despite her not sharing any synergy whatsoever with Lycaon or Ellen. And if you, like myself, have a well-built Sokaku that already has a lot of investment, you have already leveled up a lot of the skills, and also have some of the Mindscape cinemas, then you could always throw Sokaku onto a different team, even if she does not share any synergy with the rest of the party, and she's still going to provide a decent amount of value, simply because of the massive attack increase that she is able to provide. Now, another thing that we should take into consideration regarding whether or not to go with Sokaku or Nicole is just how effective their kits are and how much time are you going to be spending on field with them. So for example, with Nicole, if you simply want to do an EX special, you're going to go like this, simply charge up the beam, and then you are able to swap into Ellen right away. And as you can see, I'm able to swap to Ellen, and the Vortex Orb is still in place, still dealing damage, and the defense reduction is constantly going to be refreshed. So despite the defense reduction only being 3.5% seconds, it's going to last a much longer time. Whereas Sokaku, on the other hand, it does take quite a long time for you to be able to swap to Ellen. You do have to spend a little bit of time on that animation. Though given that you are not going to be spending a lot of time dealing damage with either support character, I think a much more appropriate comparison would be to go to trigger a chain attack. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Like so. And then we swap into Nicole, and right away I'm able to swap into Ellen and follow up. It was practically instant. However, if I do the same and now swap into Sokaku, you're going to see that I need to finish all of this animation. It's a much longer time to then be able to swap into a different character. Whereas Nicole, as you saw right there, all she simply has to do is essentially just shoot this real quick and you'll be able to swap to a different character. Not to mention that there is some special tech that you can do with Nicole, using her EX special in many different ways. So for one, you can simply tap it like so to activate it very quickly, or you can hold it like so, and if you are at melee range, all of this is going to be dealing damage. And again, because you held it, the Vortex Orb is going to last much longer. That being said, a special input that you can do with Nicole is if you hold down the button and then you do a 360 with your analog, you're going to be able to sit on top of the suitcase, and you are going to essentially be delaying these vortex orbs, and it's going to make it last much longer, and again you're able to swap to a different character a lot quicker. Like so. I mean, just look at how much time I have to be able to do damage there. And let's actually try to do a burst rotation during that window. So I'm gonna do this, swap to Ellen as soon as I can.
Take this. How annoying.
And all of this, including the ultimate, is going to be boosted by the defense shred of Nicole. And again, despite the duration of the defense shred only being 3.5 seconds. Now that being said, there's also a second special way for you to be able to use your EX special, where again you go for the charged EX special, but you do a 360, but you don't quite complete the full rotation. You just tilt the analog a little bit, and like so you're able to fire it and essentially delay the vortex explosion. So if I try to do a quick swap to Ellen as soon as I get the opportunity, as you can see, I still have a ton of time to be able to do this, and because that vortex orb explosion is going to be delayed, I think it's going to result in an even bigger amount of time for me to be able to deal damage with Ellen. It should also be noted that whenever there are multiple enemies nearby and you do one of these vortex orbs, all of them are going to be pulled together and you're going to be able to hit all of them at once, which is going to be able to make your job of cleaning up the enemies quicker during the shield defense a lot easier. Now, unfortunately, I don't think there is a way for me to put multiple enemies here in the training area, but as I hope you're able to see from the gameplay in the background, Nicole is able to group up enemies very quickly, which is going to allow Ellen to dispatch them much quicker. Furthermore, it should be noted that the next limited character that we're going to be getting in Zenless Zone 0 is going to be none other than Zhu Yuan. And she, being an ether character, is naturally going to pair up very well with Nicole, so of course you will be able to activate Nicole's additional ability, which will apply a debuff to the enemies, making it so that they take 25% more ether damage, which is again on top of the defense reduction that she already provides. So if you are aiming to summon for Zhu Yuan, then Nicole is going to absolutely excel and propel that team to the next level. It should also be noted that Nicole is going to be one of the featured A-rank characters on Zhu Yuan's banner, as is going to be the case for Ben Bigger. Now, I personally don't really care too much about him. I think he's a cool character, but he's not particularly interesting in terms of gameplay. But given that Nicole is going to be one of the featured characters, means that if you try to get Zhu Yuan, you may end up with multiple copies of Nicole, letting you unlock some of these very powerful Mindscape cinemas. With the second one giving Nicole 5 energy every 15 seconds, provided that you use the EX special or trigger a chain attack, with the fourth one increasing the radius of the energy field, which is of course going to allow you to group enemies a lot easier, with the final one granting your entire team a 1.5 stacking crit rate that can go up to 15%, lasting for 12 seconds, with the duration of each of the stacks being calculated separately. It's a shame that the stacks duration don't refresh with every single hit of your vortex, but still being able to provide critical hit rate to your entire party is going to of course be very beneficial. And the final reason why you may want to go with Nicole rather than Sukaku is purely for investment, because everyone gets a Nicole at the start of the game, and given that there is currently only one ether character in the game, with Zhu Yuan we're going to have two, you might be more limited when facing against certain enemy resistances, especially if you go in again with the mono ice team, and Nicole is going to function better in more different teams. I should also mention the fact that Reason Boo is by far the best Bang Boo in the entire game, as not only does it have a very high damage and daze multiplier, but the fact that it also pulls in enemies together is again going to allow you to group enemies and deal with them a lot quicker. And when Zhu Yuan releases, you're going to be able to trigger the additional ability of this Bang Boo, which is going to let you build up more ether anomaly to deal even more damage. Ultimately, it doesn't matter too much which support character you take on your team, so long as you are able to clear all of the endgame content. It just so happens that at this point in progression of the game, where your characters are at a much lower level compared to that of the enemies, especially on the harder stages of the shield defense, Nicole is going to bring much greater value compared to all the other supports, though that may end up changing with the release of new support characters, as well as we eventually leveling up and hitting the level cap of 60. Anyways, let me know how you guys feel about this. I thought it was a very interesting thing that I noticed by watching a few videos on building Curly Billy, and I decided to emulate what the CN players were doing, and I found that this was really working out. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'm going to be making many more character guides in the future, so let me know which one I should cover next. Please leave a like on the video if you have learned anything new, and subscribe to the channel for better luck on your next 50-50. With that being said, my name is DarkHero, and thank you all so much for watching.